Welcome in, everyone. Grab your coffee and let's get right into it because today's explainer is an absolute game changer. We're diving deep into the incredibly powerful framework behind the compound power of small wins. Look, if you've ever felt completely overwhelmed by your goals, or maybe you've tried kicking off some super ambitious new routine just to burn out a week later, yeah, we have all been there. You are in exactly the right place. We're going to extract the core methodology from this text to build out a real, actionable, step-by-step guide for daily habit building. We're breaking down those complex behavioral shifts so they actually work for us in the real world. Let's dive in.
Why do most people fail? I want you to take a second and really think about that. Think about your own past struggles. You know the ones, right? Those fiery New Year's resolutions that just completely vanished by mid-February. Or that intense, hardcore workout plan that had you buying a whole new wardrobe only to tap out after 3 days because you were literally too sore to move. We all go through these cycles of intense ambition followed by, well, spectacular burnout. It's incredibly common. But the source material asks us to confront this exact universal struggle head-on before we can build anything lasting.
So the crucial point is this. They try to change their whole life in one day. Man, just saying that out loud feels exhausting, doesn't it? The text hits the nail on the head here. It pinpoints this overzealous behavior as the primary root of our failure. We wake up on a random Tuesday and decide, okay, today I'm flawlessly fixing my diet, I'm doing a 2-hour workout, reading a book, and launching a new business, all before we've even had lunch. No way! It is an impossible, almost comical trap of overnight transformation. We're asking our brains and bodies for a 100% overhaul instantaneously. And guess what? Human biology just rejects that kind of sudden, massive disruption.
Moving right along to Section 1, the 1% paradigm shift in what successful people actually do.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the contrast. If trying to overhaul your whole life is a guaranteed blueprint for failure, the source points us to the alternate reality that successful people operate within. Instead of carrying that chaotic, heavy burden of changing everything at once, they zero in on something tiny, just 1%. They completely flip their mindset from this overwhelming mountain of tasks to something highly manageable. It's totally counterintuitive. It almost feels a bit too simple, right? But the text strips away all that noise and pressure to reveal that this tiny number is exactly where the real magic happens.
And here is the absolute core rule straight from the source. Improve only 1% every single day. Let me emphasize that second half, every single day. This entire framework rests on frequency over volume. And why does frequency matter so much? Well, think about it. Taking a massive leap forward usually requires a ton of recovery time, which completely breaks your momentum. But a tiny, barely noticeable micro step, you can recover from that in a heartbeat. You're committing to taking that step without fail, literally wiring your brain to expect the action. It's that steady, unbroken consistency of the 1% that generates the magic, overriding the size of the initial effort.
Which brings us to Section 2, step-by-step building your daily habits.
Okay, let's dive into this. How do we actually fit this abstract idea into our very busy, very real lives? We need a system. So here is the direct 3-step blueprint pulled right from the text. Step 1. Start small. Take your towering ambition and strip it down to its most basic component. Make it laughably easy. Step 2. Improve only 1% daily. Just add a tiny fraction of effort to whatever you nailed yesterday. And Step 3. Never stop. Take a second and let the sheer simplicity of that formula sink in. It isn't about intensity, it is entirely about endurance. This is the exact playbook for building sustainable habits without the inevitable crash.
To make this super practical, the source gives us some brilliant, concrete examples of what a 1% improvement actually looks like in the wild. Check out the rhythm of this. 1 extra page, 1 extra workout, 1 extra hour of focus. Reading 1 extra page doesn't feel like you're conquering a whole library, but over a year, that's 365 pages. That's a dense book you otherwise wouldn't have touched. 1 extra workout a month completely shifts your fitness baseline over a decade. The compounding auditory effect of saying 1 extra, 1 extra, 1 extra perfectly mimics how the habit itself compounds. It is incredibly doable and totally strips away any excuse not to act.
And this brilliantly illustrates the long-term reality of the framework. Notice how those tiny, almost invisible daily efforts stack up? On one side, you've got this tiny sliver of effort, barely perceptible day to day. But just like the text states, small improvements become massive success. And you can see that undeniable reality taking shape right there. The giant gap between where you start and where you end up isn't from some heroic one-time burst of energy. Nope, it's created quietly and steadily by time multiplying those tiny 1% efforts. Time is your secret multiplier.
All right, section 3, the engine of success, which is discipline.
So we know the steps, and we see the math behind the compounding. But what's actually fueling this engine when you're completely exhausted on day 47, when the shiny newness of your goal has worn off? Well, the text sets up this fascinating showdown for us: motivation versus discipline. We mix these up all the time. Motivation is just a feeling. It's that huge rush of energy you get on January 1st after watching an inspiring video. It's super exciting, but honestly, it is deeply unreliable. Motivation is awesome until it rains, or you're tired, or your favorite show drops a new season. The source takes a very definitive stance on which of these actually carries you across the finish line.
The text drops this profound, absolute truth. Discipline always beats motivation. Just let that marinate for a second. Motivation needs you to feel perfectly aligned with the universe to take action. Discipline? Discipline dictates that you take action no matter how you feel. On a terrible day when you're stressed from work, running on 4 hours of sleep, your motivation is completely out the window. If you're going to hit that 1% every single day, you cannot rely on a fleeting emotion. Discipline is just the decision you made yesterday and forcing the action today. It's the only tool tough enough to maintain the frequency required for massive success.
And finally, section 4, the compounding conclusion.
As we pull all these pieces together from our explainer, let's just recap for a second. We've called out the exhausting trap of the overnight overhaul. We've embraced the highly manageable math of the 1% rule. And we know discipline is our unwavering engine. So, the source leaves us with this absolute anchor of a quote: start small, but never stop. It is the ultimate secret to all that massive success we talked about earlier. Start small is giving yourself permission to not be perfect on day 1. It completely removes the paralyzing pressure. But never stop demands your discipline. It's a beautifully simple, unbreakable contract with yourself.
So I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought directly inspired by our deep dive today. What will your 1% be today? Seriously, not tomorrow, not waiting for a fresh start next Monday, I mean today. Will it be one extra page of that book sitting on your nightstand? One extra minute of stretching? One extra moment of deep focus on your project? The sheer power of compounding is literally sitting right in the palm of your hand, and it only takes one tiny, almost invisible step to start the engine. Thanks so much for hanging out with me for this explainer, and I absolutely cannot wait to see how you harness the compound power of your small wins.